So the next thing that we're going to be talking about in analogies is popular difficulties that can arise either when making a connection in the question or making a connection in the answers. One thing that I do want to clarify is that there are an endless amount of possible connections between two words, and we would never hope to cover them all here. So keep that in mind. However, these are things that tend to repeat themselves during the exam, so it's worth knowing. I'll be talking about each of them separately. The first thing I want to talk about is vocabulary. So vocabulary is important. Let's say if I have malingering or an illness, if I don't know what malingering is, it'll be very nearly impossible for me to make a connection here. So vocabulary is important, something that we definitely have to improve if we don't know. I'm specifically not going to tell you what malingering is. I want you to look it up and create your own connecting sentence. The second thing that I want to be talking about here is the order of the words. The order of the words in analogies does matter. So if you have recipe cook, let's say if I were to make a gross division between the two, I would say that recipe is something more specific. I'm not making a connection here, I'm just so that we understand. And a cook is something a bit more broad. The order does matter. So in the answers, the analogy of recipe will be first and the analogy of cook will be second. Okay, and if it's the opposite, then it's the wrong answer. So the order does matter. However, when I'm looking at this, I can change the order. I can change the order. It just means that I have to change the order also in the questions, also in the answers. Why is it a difficulty? Because if we have recipe and cook, then like I said, a recipe is something a bit more specific. It's hard to try and define cook with a recipe. Recipe is something the cook uses to make food. It's a bit harder. However, if I start from cook, it could be a bit easier. A cook uses a recipe in order to make food. It can be a more natural. So it's not a problem. Start from the second word, from whatever is more convenient for you. Just remember to do the same thing in the answers. That's what I wanted to say about that. Necessary or possible connection. We have to differentiate between a necessary connection and a possible connection. Now, what does that mean? Sing and become hoarse. Okay, so I can say, let's say if I want to make a connection, if I sing, then I'll become hoarse. Now, this is not a necessary connection, right? If I sing, it does not necessarily always mean that I'll become hoarse. I may be a very talented opera singer, and I never get hoarse. I'm just amazing at it, and I can sing all day long. So what we have to differentiate here is that it's a possible connection. If I sing too much, I may become hoarse. It's a possibility. But the differentiation here is important because if I sing, then I'll become hoarse. I'll see that in my answers, most probably, I'll be left with 2 or 3 questions. So that my connection won't be good enough or specific enough to eliminate 3 questions and circle the right answer. So I do have to differentiate here between a possible connection and say, like I said, it's possible. If I sing too much, it's possible that I'll become hoarse. I may become hoarse. Words like that. The third thing is opposite or a conflict in the connection. So fridge and hot. Fridge and hot. It's hard to try and define fridge with the word hot or hot with the word fridge. Somehow there's a dissonance between them. They kind of seem like the opposite things, but not specifically the opposite things. Right? It's not fridge and oven, which would be maybe a little bit easier. Which can also be fridge and oven would be a total opposite. This would be more of a conflict. Now, what I'll try to do here is I'll try to use the word not, because what I want here to be is I want there to be fridge and cold, right? Fridge and cold is easier for me. Fridge, keep something more cold, right? Or keep something cold. I don't want to say here hot. So what I'll do here is if it's the opposite, I'll use a negative word. I'll use not. So fridge keeps something not hot. Or if I put something in the fridge, it becomes less hot. Right? So not or less. Use those words in order to resolve a conflict. Not resolve, but to show a conflict. Last thing. One of many or part of. Also slightly different, but say if I have link and chain. So many links together make up a chain, right? So one of these things, if I have a lot of them, make up a different thing. One of them is part of a chain. If I have many of them, they will make a chain together. So many links make a chain. So that would be one of many or part of. lastly, a linking factor. Now, what does it mean, a linking factor? Let's say if I had vine and wine. So if I were to say wine is made from the vine, that would be too broad and not specific enough. Because we have something in the middle here. There's a linking factor in the middle here, which I would say is grapes. I pick grapes off of the vine. From the grapes, I'll make the wine. Right? There's some sort of a linking factor. There's a factor in the middle here that needs to be, that we need to show him when we make a connection. He needs to be represented. So what I would say here, now I can't use the word grapes. Grapes is too specific, and so when I put it on the question, most probably my answers won't be something that has to do with grapes. So it's too specific. I have to find a way to say grapes without saying grapes. So meaning I have to say, let's say something. Words like something, like more amorphic words, like vine, the thing I pick off the vine, or the thing I take from the vine. Pick would probably be too specific. The thing I take from the vine, I use it to make wine. Right? So using things like thing or it in order not to say the specific word. Now, this sentence doesn't sound amazing. It may not be grammatically correct. It doesn't matter. Your connecting sentence does not have to be grammatically correct at all. A lot of the time, it won't be grammatically correct because you won't want to change the words. You'll feel less comfortable with changing the words, so you'll want to. So it means the connecting sentence will be a little not so grammatically correct. That's fine. It's not supposed to be. You're not giving it as an essay. It's just so that you understand. As long as it's specific and the connection is exact, it's fine for it not to be grammatically correct. So these are popular difficulties that may arise, that you may see. It definitely helps trying to categorize your analogies. However, it definitely won't work 100% of the time. Like I said, there's a million ways to connect between the words. So the best way possible is just to make a connecting sentence while keeping your eye out for these popular difficulties that can arise when making a connection. Next, we're going to be talking about how we practically approach analogy questions.